Eder Jofre was more than a boxer. He was Brazil's quiet storm. Born in 1936, raised with discipline and fire, he carried both heart and hands that the world would never forget. They called him the greatest bantamweight who ever lived, and he proved it every time he stepped into the ring. Two divisions bowed to him, bantamweight and featherweight, and yet Jofre never needed loud words. His fists told the story. The world took notice. In 2019, he was ranked the 16th greatest boxer of all time. Imagine that, standing above hundreds of champions, placed just behind legends like Roberto Duran and Sugar Ray Leonard. The Ring magazine called him one of the greatest fighters of the past 80 years. The International Boxing Hall of Fame welcomed him in 1992, making him the only Brazilian ever to hold that honor. His punch, deadly enough to earn him a spot on Ring magazine's list of the 100 greatest punchers in history. But it wasn't only power that defined him. It was balance, precision, patience. He boxed like an artist. He lived like an architect, shaping both his craft and his life with detail, discipline, and pride. By 1958, Eder Jofre was sharpening his craft with every fight. He stepped into the ring 4 more times that year, and each victory built his name. Then came a new test, his first fight outside Brazil. Montevideo, Uruguay. 10 rounds against Ruben Cáceres. The match ended in a draw, but Jofre had carried his power across borders, and the world began to notice. That same year, on November 14th, something happened that would never happen again. Jose Smecca sent him to the canvas in the very first round. For a moment, silence. Jofre rose, eyes steady, and by the 7th round he had flipped the script, knocking Smecca out cold. That knockdown would remain the only one of his entire career. In 1959, he was relentless. 8 more victories, including a win over 2-time world title challenger Leo Espinosa. Then came 1960, and with it, his first taste of gold. On February 19th, he faced Ernesto Miranda for the South American Bantamweight title. 15 hard rounds. Jofre outpointed him, claiming his very first professional championship. He proved it was no accident in the rematch, this time finishing Miranda in just 3 rounds. But Jofre was hungry for bigger stages. His U.S. debut came next, in Los Angeles. Across from him stood Jose Medel, a top-ranked challenger with a dangerous reputation. Jofre broke him down and ended it with a knockout in the 10th. Then came Ricardo Moreno, a man known as one of the hardest punchers in boxing history. Jofre didn't flinch. By the 6th round, Moreno was on the floor, and Joffre's legend was on the rise. November 18th, 1960. Los Angeles. Under the bright lights, Eder Jofre finally reached the peak every fighter dreams of. He crushed Eloy Sanchez in 6 rounds to claim the vacant WBA bantamweight crown. Brazil had its first true world champion, and the boxing world had a new king. Jofre wore that crown with pride. Between 1960 and 1965, he defended his title again and again, no matter where the ring was set. Caracas, Tokyo, Manila, Bogota. He outclassed Piero Rollo, Johnny Caldwell, Jose Medel, Katsuyoshi Aoki, Johnny Jamito, Bernardo Carballo. The list of challengers stretched wide across the globe, and none could take the belt. Outside title fights, he stayed sharp, dismantling tough men like Billy Peacock, Sadao Yoida, and Fernando Soto. After toppling Aoki in Tokyo, the WBC joined the WBA in recognizing him as champion. Jofre wasn't just a title holder anymore. He was the undisputed world bantamweight champion. For 5 years, he seemed untouchable. But then came May 17th, 1965, Nagoya, Japan. His opponent, fighting Harada. 15 rounds, split decision. The judges gave it to Harada in one of the most disputed calls of the era. Jofre had lost his undefeated record, and with it, his title. A year later, in their rematch in Tokyo, Harada won again, this time by unanimous decision. Jofre, bruised not just in body but in spirit, walked away for boxing. He retired, but legends rarely stay gone. In 1969, he returned, and he returned with fury. He stopped Rudy Corona in 6, then strung together 13 straight victories. His second chance came in 1973, in Brasilia, against the slick Jose Legra. 15 grueling rounds. The decision came down, majority win for Jofre. He had done it again, now a two-division world champion. Even near the twilight of his career, Jofre had fire. He outpointed Frankie Crawford in a non-title fight, then defended his featherweight crown against Vicente Saldivar, Mexico's own former bantamweight king. That night in Salvador, Jofre didn't just defend, he destroyed. A knockout in the fourth round. The old master had proven, once more, that greatness never fades. By 1976, the end had come. On October 8th in Sao Paulo, Eder Jofre stepped into the ring for the last time, facing Mexico's Octavio Gomez. The fight went the distance, 12 full rounds. The judges awarded Jofre a unanimous decision, though the numbers stirred debate. Jofre himself was honest, almost painfully so. To the newspaper O Globo, he admitted, "Say what they will, I did not beat Gomez." It was the final mark of a man who had built his career on discipline and truth, both inside and outside the ropes. When he left the ring for good, his record told its own story. 72 wins, just 2 defeats for draws. And half of those victories, 50, came by knockout. A record that placed him among the rarest of fighters, the ones whose hands could end a fight at any moment. Life after boxing was no less meaningful. He entered politics, serving as an alderman in Sao Paulo for 16 years. Later, he worked with Dursa, helping shape the very highways of the city that had raised him. But Jofre's story never faded. In 2004, his life was immortalized in a documentary, O Grande Campillo. Then, on his 85th birthday in 2021, the first English-language biography of his journey was published. Eder Jofre, Brazil's first boxing world champion, written by family friend Christopher J. Smith. The book won Book of the Year at the West Coast Boxing Hall of Fame. Jofre himself was there in Hollywood to accept the honor, joined by his son Marcel and daughter Andrea. He even revisited the Olympic Auditorium, the very place where, back in 1960, he had become a world champion. Though retired, he sometimes laced up again for exhibition bouts against names like Servilio de Oliveira and Alexis Arguello. And even into his 70s, he never let go of fitness. At 74 years old, Jofre released a calisthenics video, showing the world that health, discipline, and spirit don't age. Eder Jofre's life was more than boxing. It was truth. It was honor. It was a man who rose from Sao Paulo to conquer the world, and never stopped carrying himself like a champion, even when the gloves were gone. Beyond the belts and knockouts, Eder Jofre lived by principles that set him apart. At the age of 20, he made a decision few fighters would dare. He gave up meat. A book had convinced him that eating it was harmful to the body, and from then on, he became a strict vegetarian. He stayed true to that choice for the rest of his life. Even in his later years, he spoke openly about it. In 2019, he said, "I even feel disgust today when I see people eating meat. I eat pasta, rice, beans, boiled potatoes, or fried. Very rarely, I'll have an egg. I drink milk, yogurt, curds, and honey." For a man in a brutal sport, Jofre's discipline with diet and health was as remarkable as his left hook. It was part of what made him different. But time spares no fighter. In his final years, Jofre battled chronic traumatic encephalopathy, the cruel price so many boxers pay for a life of blows absorbed in the ring. In March 2022, pneumonia placed him in a clinic in Embidas Arts. On October 2nd of that year, Brazil's greatest fighter passed away from complications of the disease. He was 86 years old. His body grew weak, but his legacy never did. Even in death, Eder Jofre remains what he always was. Brazil's first world champion, a man of quiet honor, and one of the greatest boxers who ever lived. Eder Jofre's journey was never just about boxing. It was about discipline, honesty, and the will to rise again and again, no matter the arena. From Sao Paulo streets to world championship rings, from politics to family, from discipline at the table to discipline in training. He lived every chapter with conviction. He was a fighter, yes, but more than that, he was a symbol, a man who showed Brazil and the world that greatness is not measured only by victories, but by the way one carries themselves through triumph and through struggle. Eder Jofre left us at 86, yet his name will echo far longer, not just in record books, but in the hearts of those who admire courage, truth, and the rare beauty of a champion who stayed true to himself until the very end.